Smith Wesson Equalizer and the CSX E-Series. Let's break down the different features of these two hammer-fired pistols. Hey everyone, Julie Golob here. I'm a Smith & Wesson ambassador and sponsored shooter, sharing fun with guns and gear here on YouTube, juliegolob.com, Substack, and at Julie Golob on social media. Thanks for stopping by to watch this video, and please feel free to connect with me in the comments and elsewhere online. So, CSX E-Series. I have two videos dedicated to this pistol, including a couple hundred rounds through mine. I will leave those linked below and in the cards. I have the 3.1-inch CSX E-Series and a Smith & Wesson Equalizer. I do realize that using the 3.6-inch CSX E-Series would make for a better comparison. That is one of the pros of the CSX. You can choose from two barrel lengths, whereas the Equalizer comes in one. Also, you'll notice that some of the footage that you will see in this video, the cover plate, the slide cover plate for the Equalizer is missing. In anticipation of adding an RMRCC to this pistol to see how the dot tracks, I set it somewhere and now I cannot find it. So, very irritating. Sorry about that. Please know that the Equalizer does come with a cover plate installed on the pistol, attached with two little screws that you can remove, like I did, to add an optic that you will see in the video. First up, let's talk about the similarities. Both pistols are hammer-fired, single-action handguns chambered in 9mm. They utilize an 18-degree grip angle, have stainless steel slides and barrels, and white dot iron sights with a serrated rear. Both have an armonite finish for durability, a loaded chamber indicator, and a reversible mag release button so that you can switch it from left to right. They are optics ready with an RMSC footprint and ship with 3 magazines. The CSX and Equalizer are concealed carry options for those who desire a hammer-fired pistol instead of a striker-fired gun. The CSX offers an external hammer, whereas the Equalizer's hammer is internal. If you prefer more of a 1911 style pistol where you can see and manipulate the hammer, the CSX fits that bill. Where the Equalizer uses a polymer frame, the CSX E-Series has an aluminum alloy frame. There are a lot of people out there who prefer one material over the other. Both are suitably durable, and the CSX E-Series does offer polymer texturing, so in that regard the feel will be similar. Where I find metal versus polymer to be different is how there's a sensation of, give in the hand with polymer. Now, I certainly cannot crush a polymer grip with my hands, but it does have that sensation that it's just not as stiff or that it's somehow more pliable, if that makes sense. Metal is harder, firm. It's also colder in certain conditions, so depending on the weather, on the range, or how you carry, you may notice that. The biggest difference in feel of the two frames is how the Equalizer feels boxier and a bit thinner from the left to the right side of the grip. The CSX E-Series has a deeper curve inward to accommodate the web of your hand, so your hand tucks in more, and that in turn can make the balance and recoil feel different. I'll chat more about that later, but even though the grip is a touch slimmer on the Equalizer, the slide is bulkier and much wider. When you look at the slides next to each other, the Equalizer resembles more of a full-size slide. Definitely bigger. You'll see footage throughout the video where I've added a Trijicon RMRCC. Now, the optic sits higher on the slide because I need to use an adapter for the RMSC cut, and some optics will sit much lower so that you may be able to co-witness on the Equalizer. If you decide to add an optic to the CSX, you'll lose the rear sight, so co-witnessing is no longer an option at all. As far as ease of racking the slide, both pistols have front and rear serrations. Of the two, I'd say that the Equalizer is just a bit easier to rack. Remember, it's built around the Shield EZ design, so it's made to be easy. The CSX isn't that much more difficult though. You have to overcome that hammer tension, so the hardest part of racking is at the beginning, and then it gets easier. That initial rack point is also where people tend to have the most strength and oomph technical term there. But if you find you really struggle racking the slide on semi-autos, you may prefer the Equalizer. Both guns are light, even with the frame material being different. The weights are similar. Empty weights provided by Smith Wesson have the Equalizer coming in at almost 23 ounces and the 3.6-inch CSX Eries at 23.5. The 3.1 inch is the lightest at 19 ounces, so if weight is a major consideration for you, then you may like the 3.1 inch CSX the best. I loaded these up to capacity with 147 grain Federal HST so that you can see the weight differences here. You'll also see my calculations for the 3.6 inch as well. If we look at 15+1, that weight across the board, we have 27.2 ounces for the 3.1 inch CSX E-Series, nearly 32 ounces for the 3.6 inch CSX, and then the Equalizer comes in at 31 ounces. And again, that weight is without that small little piece of plastic and the screws for the optics plate. So very similar weights between the two pistols with the longer barrels. I mentioned magazine capacity. The CSX E-Series has 10, 12, 15, and 17 round mags available for the pistol versus the Equalizer's 10, 13, and 15 round mags. The Equalizer uses Shield Plus mags, important, not M&P mags. So the 15 round mag is where you're maxed out in capacity. That means you have 2 more rounds with the CSX in its largest mag. The Equalizer mags taper much more at the top compared to the CSX mags, and you can see how the 17 round mag in the CSX is the same grip length as the 15 rounder in the Equalizer. When it comes to loading up the mags, the CSX mags are just much easier to load. It's only the last couple of rounds on the 15 and the 17 round mags where I have to give it that little extra love, and I don't need a loader to do it. Shield Plus and Equalizer mags are significantly tighter. The Equalizer does come with an UpLula, so that's a bonus. I wouldn't want to have to load the Equalizer mags without some sort of load assist. As you can expect, the fuller the mags, the harder you have to seat them on both pistols. With all that spring tension in the Equalizer mags, you can't be ginger about it, and depending on your hand size, if your finger or the fleshy part of your hand gets in the way, you may not seat it fully. You'll see that in action in my last range vlog with the Equalizer. That taper with the Equalizer mags makes it much easier to load them. There's more room, and so they're naturally more forgiving on reloads. With the CSX E-Series, the mag spacers or sleeves are tighter than the original CSX mags, but they can be removed. The mag spacers for the Equalizer, the Shield Plus mags, are fixed, so you won't be able to slide them on and off. That's something you'll want to pay attention to if your hand extends in a way so that that fleshy part gets pinched when you're seating the mag. With the CSX mags, you don't have to use the spacers at all, which may be nice for those spare mags for reloads. Again, that depends on your hand size and your preferences. In addition to the 2 extra rounds per mag, the CSX also offers 3 back straps. The Equalizer, with that grip safety, has a fixed grip. That makes the CSX more modular in that you can use the smallest grip with a 10 or 12 round mag for the smallest option, but also use the large grip with the 15 and 17 round mag for when you want that larger grip. So, for example, in the summer, you could carry the 10 or 12 round with that small grip and the medium or large grip with the 15 and 17 round mags for when you can get away with bulkier clothes and more layers. You have more options. That also translates to how the grip feels in the hand. Now, even though the CSX feels fuller, that doesn't mean it will be harder to reach the trigger and the controls. To show you how that translates to my hand, here's the CSX E-Series compared to the Equalizer. Despite the larger grip circumference, the controls are easier for me to reach, and this alone could make the CSX E-Series your preferred choice if you have small hands with shorter fingers. Those with larger hands and longer fingers may find the Equalizer is better suited for them. Here's some footage to give you an idea what the different pistols look like side by side and in my hands with the different mag options. As for grip texture, they both have a sandpaper feel. This entire Equalizer has this texture, where the CSX with the small grip has less texture on the sides, which may make it more comfortable to carry. Let's dive deeper into some trigger talk here. A big difference between the CSX and the Equalizer triggers beyond the trigger reach is the fact that the Equalizer has a curved trigger compared to the CSX E-Series flat face trigger with a trigger safety. Flat triggers are all the rage, but I gotta say, I may be strange, I do enjoy a curved trigger. That is, if I can reach it easily. I don't have to stretch for the Equalizer, but anything longer would not be ideal for me and my hands. The trigger feel is also very different. My CSX E-Series breaks at a little over 5 pounds. It's very crisp. You have a little take up at the front, the hard wall, and then it breaks. The reset has a multi-click feel to it. Not a big deal for me, but it's something to note. My Equalizer trigger breaks at a little over 4 pounds, and it feels smoother to me. The reset is tactile and audible for those who like that, and there's definitely more creep to it. Not in a bad way, like a creaky door in a haunted house, but instead of that hard wall, it feels like you just ease it forward until the hammer snaps. I love the Equalizer trigger. I just don't like crisp triggers as much, especially over 4 pounds. A crisp trigger can feel heavier even when it's the same trigger weight. If you're really into reset, you'll appreciate the Equalizer trigger. If you have short fingers, you may find the trigger on the CSX works better for you, as you don't have to stretch as much. And then of course, whether you like a trigger with roll in it or something that's crisp. As far as the size of the trigger guard, this may be a consideration for you if you live somewhere where it's cold enough that you'll wear gloves. The overall trigger guard space for the CSX is just a tiny bit smaller. If you have small hands and slim fingers, this may be no issue at all for you. If you do have thicker fingers and your gloves add bulk, the Equalizer does offer more space. Let's talk safeties. Both guns come with external safeties. All Equalizers come with a grip safety and an optional thumb safety. The CSX E-Series has a trigger safety and ambidextrous thumb safety. So some big differences here. Both guns have what I feel is a low effort, intuitive safety. The grip safety on the Equalizer and the trigger safety on the CSX. As long as you have a good grip and decent trigger finger placement, you don't have to think about them. Now, I will say that some people do have issues with the Equalizer grip safety. It most often happens with newer shooters and how they grip, but it can also pose an issue for certain hands. If you don't want a grip safety, the CSX is your best option of the two. The thumb safeties are worth talking about. If you come from a shooting background where you've learned to work the safeties, that is riding them while shooting and activating them as necessary, the Equalizer thumb safety, in my opinion, it's just superior. These safeties are nice and big, easy on and off with the firing hand. I mentioned this in the other videos. I wish the CSX safety was just a bit bigger to make it easier to operate with a strong hand. It's not an issue to deactivate, but to engage it into that up position, I have to use my support hand thumb to do so consistently. Whereas this is no issue at all with the Equalizer. With both of these pistols, unlike a 1911, you can activate the safety into the up position and still manipulate the slide. I'm a fan of larger thumb safeties. I'm very grateful that I learned to shoot on guns like the 1911, high power, and 3rd gen Smiths, and that I had to learn how to manipulate a manual thumb safety. I like the added safety aspect and how I have more control. With the rise in striker-fired pistols in the 90s, to having them dominate the concealed carry market, a lot of new shooters have learned to shoot guns without a thumb safety. Of these two pistols, the Equalizer is the only one with a no thumb safety or NTS option. As for the other controls, the CSX is truly a left-hand friendly pistol with the ambi thumb safety, reversible mag button I mentioned earlier, and the really big deal, the slide release. This is huge for lefties and just makes the gun handling process and experience so much more efficient and pleasurable. The Equalizer only has a left side slide release that makes it easy to access for right-handed shooters, As far as size and location of the slide release on both guns, I like the CSX design. It's a bit bigger and in just the right spot for me, so I can get just the right amount of leverage. Another major difference between the two is that the Equalizer has a rail. The CSX does not. That means if you want to add a light to the gun, the Equalizer offers that capability. Both pistols utilize a design that doesn't require you to pull the trigger to disassemble. The Equalizer is going to win here as far as ease of field stripping. The CSX E-Series has an added step and requires punching out a pin. It can be a challenge to find that sweet spot notch in the slide that allows you to drift that pin out. I will leave links below to videos by Smith Wesson that detail disassembly steps if you'd like to watch those, but yes, the Equalizer is easier to maintain. As far as how they shoot, both pistols are certainly capable. To compare them, I shot Federal Syntech 115 grain, Syntech 150 grain, and my favorite, Federal's American Eagle 147 grain 9mm. Despite being similar in weight, there is a difference in how the recoil feels with each of these loads out of both guns. The Equalizer is top heavy and has much more slide mass than the CSX. The difference between the 115s and the 150s feel much more significant to me through the Equalizer. The recoil feels like a snap with a lighter bullet and a pogo stick with the heavy 150s. On the CSX, because of the grip dimensions with the hand fitting nice and deep, along with a decreased slide mass compared to the Equalizer, the recoil feels more consistent when comparing the three different loads. The cycle rate seems much faster, especially when you're adding a dot on the CSX. Comparing 25-yard groups with the CSX and the Equalizer using Federal 147 grain ammo, I tend to pull low right with the CSX, as you've seen in my other videos if you've watched them. When I have a bad shot, that's where it goes. And you can see that in my group there. I knew it when the shot broke. So taking that one out of the picture, they are both about 2 inches from my bag and shooting prone. That's my performance on that given day. So by no means some sort of definitive scientific test, but I feel it's still useful to see. The CSX fits my hand size better and the extra capacity is awesome. I very, very much prefer the Equalizer trigger with its softer roll and larger thumb safeties. It's much more like the guns that I compete with, and so transitioning from competition guns to that heavier trigger weight for concealed carry, it's just easier for me. I feel like I shoot the Equalizer much better because of the trigger, but I'm better at controlling recoil with the CSX. I also appreciate the back straps, and I like having the trigger safety instead of the grip safety on the CSX. And of course, having the option to go with a shorter barrel length instead of just the 3.6 inch is great too. I've tried to give you as many details between the two, some major differences, some seemingly minor. I think there are so many great concealed carry options on the market in 9mm from Smith & Wesson alone. It's just like anything else when trying to decide between different models. It may be one thing like the grip safety, ease of racking, extra capacity that can make one a better choice for you over the other. And of course, whatever I may like, you may not. I always recommend trying a pistol before you buy it so you have an idea of how it feels, how it balances, how it recoils, if you can reach everything. So important. Sure, you can determine a lot in dry fire and handling at your local dealer, but shooting gives you an invaluable perspective. Both pistols have so much to offer, especially if you have specific needs. As for me, blending these two together may just make for the ideal carry gun for me. Like if an Equalizer and a CSX E-Series had a baby. Swap out the CSX trigger and thumb safeties for what you have on the Equalizer, give the CSX a rail and offer both barrel lengths like it is. Yeah, that may be my perfect concealed carry pistol. Now, all that said, it's not a matter if one is better than the other. It all comes down to personal preference and what you want and need in a carry gun. For me, Major considerations are capacity, the controls, and size, both on how easy it is to conceal and my hand size. For others, it may come down to being left-hand friendly or having a carry gun with a rail. Though it can be overwhelming when trying to narrow things down, I gotta say I'm grateful to have so many different options to shoot and explore. As always, please leave your questions down below. Please like and subscribe. There's been some interest in having me compare the CSX E-Series with the Shield Plus. If you have other pistols you'd like me to compare it to, or other guns you'd like me to show off, let me know in the comments below. With that, be safe, have fun, and until the next one, live your life fully loaded.